standard narcissistic news supply move on so quickly, they move on at warp speed. And so mine moved on while we were still together. It did appear like he was really happy. It weighed on me so heavily to see that. He's happy, I'm shattered, I'm literally laying on the bathroom floor crying, and he gets to move on and just go be happy with someone else. It's wildly unfair.
After a narcissistic relationship ends, often the ex's new life looks like a dream, while our life looks like a mess. In this episode, Lisa and I tackled this troubling dynamic and how to view it differently so that it doesn't drive you insane. Have you noticed, Lisa, how the narcissist's new life looks like a dream? I don't know how many times I've heard this when survivors are talking about looking either on Instagram or somehow having a sense that everything now is perfect, magical, like they've just picked up and moved on. I know it certainly looked that way in my case. The engagement photos were already being posted before the divorce was final. So yeah, he looked pretty happy right after this relationship was over. Did that happen to you? Did you face something similar to this as well?
Yeah, I absolutely did. And it's the standard narcissistic news supply move on so quickly, they move on at warp speed. And so mine moved on while we were still together. So it did appear like he was really happy. It weighed on me so heavily to see that. He's happy, I'm shattered, I'm literally laying on the bathroom floor crying, and he gets to move on and just go be happy with someone else. It's wildly unfair.
Oh, it is. I mean, when you think about what I was left with a dying son. So I am trekking to the hospital by myself, walking in, sitting by his bedside, knowing that my ex was already back in Mexico, meeting up with the person he'd been in a relationship with, the girlfriend. Yeah, it was devastating. I was really angry. And I have to say, despite me knowing what I know, I mean, granted, I'm a psychologist, so there's a lot that I know, but despite that, I felt defective. I felt thrown out. I felt used. And I even knew what she looked like. This woman has nothing over me, nothing at all. So it wasn't like I felt like, insecure about my body or my image, but I just felt like a has-been, unloved, definitely unloved.
Yeah, unloved, absolutely. I actually am not one who struggled so much wondering if I was the problem. I was confused. I was so perplexed. Like, I don't understand it. And I don't even mean from the perspective of putting her down, because the amount of people that knew her as well or reached out to me to say, oh, she's not pretty or she's not. I'm like, listen, I don't want to be that kind of woman who trashes someone else, certainly not the way they look. But yeah, she was with him when I was with him and she knew about me. So, I mean, I'm not defending her. I'm not a fan, but I'm just saying I don't like the idea of putting someone else down. But I also couldn't understand, like, why her? Of all people, it was the antithesis of everything he said he ever wanted. It was like realizing the lie. It was realizing that he told me all these things and it wasn't true, or he made it up the entire time. He just doesn't know what he wants, or he'll shapeshift into whatever relationship he needs to kind of keep that going. I started to realize how fake it all was.
Yeah, that's another big part of this, is their new life that they pick up can look radically different than ours. For me, I guess it drove home the cognitive dissonance piece, that the reality that I had was never real. The person that I created in my head, that he helped create in my head, didn't actually exist. Although I'll tell you, it wasn't like he left and I realized that. It took months for me to realize that. So it was a process, but it did help me to think, there's nothing he's doing today that aligns with who I am and what I want to be about. So, I mean, that's not a life that I really want, but it did emphasize the fact that I was living with a false persona, very much so.
Yeah, that was very eye-opening to me. At first, I couldn't understand it, but I actually, when you start to realize that that's what their whole world is a false persona. So they told you, oh, I don't like women that are like this. And then they leave you for a woman exactly like that. It's actually, yeah, they lied. Ooh, shocker. Big truth bomb. They're liars. We know that.
Right. It is common, though, for a lot of us, and I hear it often, for us to think that the new supply is a bad person. I don't feel that way. I mean, just like you, mine was very involved before the relationship. I found photos that they had a vacation just prior to him meeting me. So, I mean, she existed for years ahead of me. I don't know where they're at today, nor do I care. But in other words, she was an ongoing presence in our relationship. So I have reasons to not like the woman. I mean, I actually had an interaction with her, and she's, her belief system's odd, and I don't align with it, that's for sure. But I don't hate her. I don't envy her. I don't want her position. I don't even think bad things about her. Honestly, I feel sorry for her. That's how I really, truly feel. But I've noticed how many people vilify the new supply.
I get that though. I actually really see both sides, and I have gone through stages where I did. And I mean, I would even say I do to a degree still, in the sense that she knew. And here's the thing, people are like, oh, but narcissists lie to everybody. Yeah, I know that. And I know that there was a level of lie that was told to her. I'm
Yeah.
sure she thought we weren't together, I'm sure at one point. But I happen to know for a fact, because she tried to befriend me. She hung out with me. She talked to me on the phone. She absolutely, unequivocally, 110% knew I existed, knew the status of our relationship, and fully lied directly to my face. So she knew. So I'm going to vilify a bit more than the average person. I do believe that in many cases, the new supply is completely lied to. And I think that's a bit unfair, because it's easy to say she should have known. Well, we all should have known if you're going to look at it like that. We don't know, but she knew. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah, and I think maybe one of the reasons that I don't quite hold her as high of a standard as I see a lot of other people do is because, listen, I was wife number 5, okay? So I was a new supply for the last woman, who, by the way, was still married to him when we were dating and engaged, although I didn't know it. So, I mean, that woman could have a lot of bad feelings about me as well, though I was really innocent. And I also witnessed, this is the other thing, because I did so much investigative work on my own around what happened to write Love You More, I also know that the new person is being just as massively abused as I was. And I don't envy anyone in that position. So was she complicit? Absolutely. But is she also a victim? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. And actually, that was an incredible realization for me. And I would think a shocking one, because by this time, I was actually already online, and I would say, they're never good to the new person. Don't worry. I promise you, they stay the same. They don't change. And I will admit that in the back of my mind, if I could quantify like a 0.5%, I thought, I think that this is true. I'm not, maybe what if I'm wrong? There was that little shred of self-doubt. I ended up getting proof, and he is abusive to her unequivocally. That I have so much evidence to support that. And it makes me sad. I remember for a moment feeling validated, but actually I was like, oh man, that sucks, because I think from her perspective, she really won the prize and then realized I was right. But I don't know that she consciously understands that I was right. I think that she would probably see me as the cause of why he treats her that way.
Let's circle back, because I think what really throws people off is why narcissists do create a new life that looks so amazing, and what that's about, because it creates so much additional confusion and a lot of pain for survivors when they're trying to rebuild, especially when because we both know that when narcissists leave a relationship, it isn't going to be you win and they win situation. There's no mutual gains here. It's going to be mutual mass destruction often, or they're going to win and you lose. So it's going to be, they come out ahead and you come out holding just the pieces. So it feels very unfair. And there's a lot of pain that happens around that. I think one of the things that I realize is that narcissists play an image game. They're extremely competitive. It's all about how they present. And in the beginning, they're extremely good at making an idealistic picture look as though it's authentic. And they're doing that for the new person, but they're also doing it because they're aware you're watching, because they're aware that the world is watching, but they're especially aware that you're watching. And I think that's the other terribly ironic part of it, is that number of victims who then discover that their partner continues to stalk them, maybe just online, but there's a level of watching you, watch them. And so they're extremely aware of kind of creating what we call an Instagram look to their life.
Like it's a PR campaign.
Yeah.
People need to realize this is a performance.
Yes.
They know that you're watching it, even if they don't know, like they can't prove that you are creeping their Instagram stories. They think you are. They think that your sister's telling them, your friends, that this information will get back to you. They are curating this life to look so happy. And my question is always a little bit rhetorically like, why are you watching? What are you getting out of this? Because it actually hurts you. But I do understand the difficulty. And I think the point is that you see it. Now, you might be co-parenting and the kids come home and they're like, she's amazing or he's amazing. And it's so sad to feel that way, to see, even indirectly see or hear that they're happy without you. But this is an assumption, because I think that when I look back, I see old like Instagram posts where I'm like, oh, I'm so in love. And it was after we got into an argument. And I realize how much we all put forward on social media, this picture perfect life, when it's not. Speaking for myself, the new supply had a lot of reasons to want to show me that I was wrong about him. So that her little Instagram life was curated.
I know that when it was me in that position, I didn't know. I just knew that the love bombing felt so amazing that I was accidentally contributing to the look that this is an amazing. I mean, people who didn't know what was really going on, who was just watching from afar, just my own friends and community were saying they thought I had a fantasy love life and that I'd met the guy. So that when everything kind of fell apart, they're like, oh my goodness, there was this big shock. So I know that that was happening, but we underestimate that the love bombing doesn't just happen with us. It's constantly happening with the public, that what everybody is seeing is the curated self. They have a deep need to have this false persona so that people don't really know who they are. No one knows. I look back, honestly, I don't even think the person he is today with her is the real person. I don't know if anyone knows that real person. I don't know if anyone ever gets to be allowed to know that real person, which to me, I found actually very creepy and scary, that there is a side to this individual that is so deeply private and held apart from everybody that no one's allowed to get close.
Yeah, it's really, really creepy. That is exactly the right word. Nobody knows him. And actually, my sister once said that to me. The only thing you know about him is that you'll never really know him. And I was like, ooh, that's so true, because it's a mask. So they'll pretend to be who you need them to be, who the new supply needs them to be, and they just rinse and repeat. But we compare our healing to their acting. And meanwhile, we're playing two different games. This is not what you see online. Whatever you see is likely not what's actually happening.
Yeah, it's been presented on purpose that way. And sometimes this is the other hard part. It's to punish you. And we don't actually say that aloud very often. We just tell people, stop looking, which, yeah, that's what they should do. But I think that deep down, we recognize that there is a degree that this person wants to insult and inflict injury on you. Why do you think mine had engagement pictures posted on WhatsApp before even the divorce? By the way, my divorce went super quick, unusually quick. I was one of the extremely lucky few that from the date that I filed, actually, I thought I filed in August, but didn't realize I hadn't really filed the paperwork. I really filed the first week of September. I was divorced on September 20th.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I have clients that tell me like 2 years, 3 years, longer sometimes. They can really drag it out.
Yeah.
So that knowing how quickly that is, it's like, how could you possibly be engaged so quickly? That's
So he actually
fast.
he walked out the week right after 4th of July. And then the divorce was final by September 20th. So think about that. That's a short span. And the engagement photos on WhatsApp popped up in August. And of course, here's the other caveat. It was on the beach near where we lived. And she lives like, she had to take a flight to get there. It wasn't anywhere near convenient. It wasn't like they're near a beach. She's not near a beach. She's in the mountains. So they flew into our hometown area to stay and took the photos. And you don't think that was an intentional effort to her? Of course it was. Of course it was.
It absolutely was. There's a lot of little things, I mean, mine moved to the city that he said he would never live to, that I asked him to live. He absolutely refused. That's exactly where they moved. And then later I found out that she hates living where they live and feels like she was dragged there. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
Just saying, interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Jeez, Lisa, man.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot. In fact, I know somebody right now that their ex is hanging out in their home area too, like, why? Why would they do that? It's literally like, imagine that you got stabbed and then they push their thumb into that wound. That's really what they're doing. They're pushing their thumb into the wound.
Absolutely. I have a client whose dream trip was South Africa, and they planned this trip, the hotel, the flights, where they were going to eat, what they were going to do. He broke up with her, took the new supply to that trip that she planned, the entire thing, the same hotel, the same restaurants. And she's watching it play out on Instagram, just absolutely like, I can't believe he's giving her everything he said he would give me. But does the new person want that? Is that her dream trip? Imagine finding out that you're on an amazing trip with someone and their ex is who planned it, and you're just a placeholder. Imagine. That's a horrible feeling.
You're right. Actually, that's a massive betrayal to the new person.
Yes. Yes. And that's the point that I was trying to make, was this is not, she's on a dream trip. She's on your dream trip. That's weird.
That is really weird. Yeah, and I think those are the things that we don't see at the time. We don't get that. All we get is that we've been dog whistled. We don't get the fact that the new person is being actively betrayed by the act of that. That this says that this person still has you in their mind. They're still addressing you, and they're willing to use a new person as a cardboard cutout in order to reenact pain on you. When you start to really think about that, that starts to put it in a different perspective. That makes me feel, I already felt bad for her, but like I said, she's complicit at certain measure in my story, but she's not a lucky person. She did not win any lotto here.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's like, that's the weirdest thing. It's like you're holding that winning ticket. They're thinking they're holding this winning ticket. And it's like, you won nothing. You won garbage. You won absolutely nothing here. It's really sad to sort of almost feel like you've stepped into that person's life. I know in my case, she's been told if I was going to be treated like this, then why didn't I just stay with Lisa? And just all these comments constantly triangulating. She'll Photoshop Instagram photos to make herself appear thinner so that I feel bad. Meanwhile, I don't see those photos. I stopped looking a long time ago. I absolutely did in the beginning, but you eventually have to move on from that. And I moved on a lot faster than she did, but I get why, because my name comes up in their relationship. So I get that. How do you move on? How does she move on and live her new life when I'm, I don't know, a ghost in their life?
Yeah, exactly. And that's such a good point, because here's the critical piece I think you and I have been dancing around, and that is we still give them control over ourselves, over our healing, even feelings about our life and relationship and everything about them when we're aware of this. And that the best way through this, and I know we want to talk more about this in the podcast extra, is the practical steps to how to start to take your life back and stop doing this. But the essential piece for me was, because mine was stalking me online heavily. Just heavily. I think in a year, I tracked that he visited my site over 300 times. And some of the articles he would revisit, I even knew when, like one of the articles, which was what it's like to be married to a sex addict, he would visit at 2 a.m. in the morning to read it. I could see where he was logging. It was really bizarre. His preoccupation with me, he even referenced my writing and what I was writing about in a letter. So I had verification. Yes, he was reading it. So they are extremely preoccupied with us. I think that we don't recognize that. But when we do see it and we're watching them while they watch us, we're giving our control away. One more time, we're back under their thumb. And I think a lot of time, most of us don't recognize that.
Yeah, we absolutely don't. I don't think that narcissists can really be happy. Like you talk about the emptiness that they feel and they don't have a strong sense of self. Do you think that they are happy with the new person? Is that even possible?
No, I don't think so. Because I think there's an inner restlessness. They're so novelty driven that they're seeking out something that's risky and new and exciting. And the minute somebody, think about it, this is why it switches. Where's the switch happen in these relationships? It happens when they feel the relationship becomes committed, when you are theirs. And whatever moment that is, when the door locks behind you, they're bored. I think immediately they're like, okay, done, over. Now that I've achieved that, sort of like they climbed the mountain, Mount Everest. Now what's a new adventure going to be? They immediately move on. So yeah, no, they're not happy. And I think that's why they're watching us, is because that's a new kick, is how am I disrupting or destroying this other person's life? But also just because they like just the whole drama. They're very drama, kind of chaos-oriented people. But some of them I've noticed is sort of internally empty. There's just a flat, boredom to them. So some are sort of risk takers and some are just, there's not a lot there driving them. So they're just this restless, I guess that's the word I keep coming back to. There's this restlessness to them. And it's sad because they're restless with everybody. That's something every person has to solve themselves, and they don't solve it. They just jump from a consumable to consumable to consumable. That's why they struggle with addictions and gambling and all this other acting out behavior, sex and all that other stuff. They're just very driven people, very unhappily driven people. So let's hop over to the podcast extra and talk about how to stop watching your ex and their supposedly dream life when your life has been shattered. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode. Are you following me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube? Find me at Kerry McAvoy, Ph.D. And whether you're consider leaving, or have left a narcissistic relationship, find community support at my Toxic Free Relationship Club. You can learn about this resource as well as others at KerryMcAvoyPhD.com. Now you don't need to wait a week to get your next podcast fix. Join Breaking Free from Narc Abuse at substack.com to get exclusive audio content for subscribers. To sign up, click the link in the show notes. And I'll see you back here next week.